Okay, so we're going to be working on our portrait project. We've tried a couple different variations of digital portraits. We're going to get really in depth now and really work on painting digitally, not just kind of manipulating photos. So the first thing we're going to do is let's choose a portrait. So it can be somebody that you already have. It can be your portrait, like a picture of you that you already have, a family member or a friend. I'm just going to go in and choose just an interesting picture, one that kind of stands out to me. I don't know. And again, it's really just your call on what you like, what you don't like. And I think I'm going to go for one that's colored just because it could look really interesting, like um, later on as I go to paint it, other than black and white. Let me see, just something that I like. Okay, I'm going to look on a stock photography site and see if I can find something more interesting. So stock photography is just a site that has photographs that have been taken by professional photographers, and you'll have better overall picture quality just because they're professionals. Just like this one. So I'm gonna save the image as, and I'm gonna call it, this would be like our third version, so of a portrait. This one is actually gonna be like digitally painted, so I'm gonna say portrait 3, and I'm gonna call it my photo because it's my photo reference. So I'm gonna hit save. I am then going to go to Photopea. I'm going to make a new project. I'm going to say it's portrait number 3. I'm going to say it's in inches, and I want it to be 11 inches. No, I'm going to say 8.5 wide because my picture was taller rather than wide. And I'm going to say 11 inches tall. So if your picture is oriented the other way, then obviously flip those two. Depends on which way your picture is going, but for the most part, a photo usually is kind of taller rather than longer. So I'm gonna hit create. I'm gonna go to file and open in place. And I'm gonna find my image. What did I call it? Portrait number 3. Here it is. And the first thing I want to do is I want to resize it. I want to make it really large and I want to zoom into the face. So I'm going to hold down shift. Always make sure you hold down shift when you resize so you don't stretch the picture weirdly. And I think I'm going to make it even bigger. I'm just kind of moving it so I can see the corners because it's so big I can't even see the corners. That way it's really just kind of a portrait of her, really focused on her. And I think I'm going to crop her hair a little bit. Okay, once I like the way it's positioned size-wise, I'll hit enter. Then in order to do anything, I need to go up to layer and I need to rasterize it. That always takes away that little box and that tells the computer that I can digitally edit it. One of the things I notice, let me move this out of the way over here, is that there's a watermark here. It's not really going to affect me too much because I'm going to be painting on top of it. So I don't really need to include that bit. It's not going to like bother me too much, but later on, like if I wanted to edit it or remove it, I just wouldn't include it in what I'm painting. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go up to layer, and I'm going to make 2 layers. I think I'm going to do an outline layer, and then I'm going to do a second layer that's for the actual painting. So I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call it contour lines. And contour lines are similar to other other portrait projects that we've done where you did just the outlines of the face. So I'm just going to first look closely at my portrait and kind of see where the outlines are. So I'm going to use a brush, and I think I'll keep it maybe something warmer. I'm just kind of clicking from her skin tone, something that's kind of in the vicinity of it. Maybe just go a touch darker. And I'm going to go to my paintbrush tool, and that's way too big. I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to choose a paintbrush tool that is smaller. One might be a little too small. Let's see what 3 looks like. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in and get the general shape of the eye. So I'm just going to draw, and make sure you're on the right layer. I had somebody do a whole project and they were on the wrong layer, so the whole thing like couldn't work. So make sure that you are on the right layer. So we're going to do contour lines on this layer and then painting on this layer, okay? So I'm going to come in and I'm going to draw on top kind of roughly where I see her eye happening. And roughly in here. I'm going to include where I see the shadow. And I'm just going to kind of block out where I see her eyebrow. And by block out, I just mean I'm just going to draw a shape around it. Okay. And while I'm here, I'm holding down spacebar to have that hand show up. And when the hand's there, I can then draw, or I can move it, I'm sorry, and then I can draw where I want. So I'm just going to go around the ear real quick. And I see like a little bit of a shadow in here, but not a lot. And a little bit of a shadow up here. And then kind of roughly the outline for the face. All right, I'm going to move down to the next area. I'm going to go roughly the edge of the face. I'm going to do the outline for the nose. And what this is doing is it's basically kind of helping me understand where the contours or where the outlines are of the face. So when I go to paint it, I kind of have a rough idea of where things are. And I can just visualize like what's happening. So I start to see a line about here. And I'm going to go around the mouth. And again, this is very similar to one of the other portrait projects that we have done so far. So you can see I'm just doing an outline or a contour line around the major features. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just roughly where I see things happening. So I can start to closely look at the face and look at some of these details before I even start drawing them or digitally painting them, right? And you should have done some practice on where the general outlines of the eyes line up with the nose, line up with the mouth. We're going to keep practicing this because it all relates to our portrait project. Okay. All right, so I have the bottom of her chin. I don't have her neck, so I'm going to go in there and draw that. Go a little crazy there. When it's farther away. And again, I'm just getting a rough idea to kind of wrap my head around this. And when I look up here, she's got curly hair, hair's kind of crazy up here. So I'm just going to do like a rough kind of idea of where the hairline is and a rough idea of where the hair is here. And I'm even going to go around the bun. on top, and I'm going to kind of show a few lines to show the direction of the hair, because that'll help me later on when I go to paint it. I got some crazy kind of curly things happening back there. Okay, so that's my first step, just the contours, right? So that looks closely similar to what I'm starting with, and it gives me a good base for my outlines. So I don't have a color that's too like stands out too much, just a like a neutral kind of color that's from her skin tone. You could do it like a darker one if you wanted to, or a lighter one, it's up to you. I'm just gonna start there, okay? My next step is to go to my layer 2, and I'm gonna start painting. Now, because this is a labor intensive process, which means it'll take you some time, a couple things I want you to do as you're working. Please, please, please make sure that you go up to File, you save as a PSD as you're working, because I've had some kids who have lost their entire project because they weren't saving as they were going. So please, please, please make sure you do File and Save, because it is not automatic in this program, okay? So as you're working, make sure you hit Save. So you have one with, so you have this document or this file with the layers on it, okay? Next thing I want to point out is that we're going to start to work with the actual painting of it, and we're going to use this project for multiple weeks. So this week ends in December 4th. We're probably going to take this a few weeks to work on this project. So I'm just going to really zoom in and focus in and start with one area at a time. Okay, so when I start to paint, I don't really want my contour lines to be too much. So I'm going to turn them off so they don't distract me. I'm going to try to match the colors that I see here. And I'm going to start with the skin tone values first. Okay. So I'm looking at my portrait, but I'm on layer 2. This layer is going to be your digital painting layer. And I'm just double clicking on this to rename it. Okay, so double click on the words, and then you can type in what it is. Okay, I'm going to be taking the colors from this layer. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, and the first thing I'm going to do, so I'm going to pull back a little bit so we can look at it. So when we look at the face, there's light areas and there's dark areas, right? We see that there's light in the middle here, there's light here, there's kind of light in the cheeks here. Then we see some shadowy areas, some darker areas, and the very dark along the side, right? So I'm going to try to match some of the skin tones and kind of work my way. I'll start with the forehead and kind of work down as I go and match the colors that are on the face. I want them to blend together, so I can show you some different ways that we can blend it. But I want them to not look super choppy. I want to kind of fade one color into another. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to choose a color, and I'm going to start in the middle of the forehead. It's pretty light in here. And I'm just kind of sampling the area to find something that's in the middle. I don't want to go too crazy light. All right, and I want to make sure, again, that I'm on my digital painting layer, so make sure you are on the right layer. You don't want to be drawing on this portrait, and then you ruin your whole portrait photo, and you don't have it for reference again. You got to bring it back in. That's a pain. Do not do that. Make sure you're on the digital painting layer, okay? I'm going to come in with my paintbrush, and I'm going to start with something a little bit bigger than 3, because that'll take me forever. I'm just going to map out where are my light areas in here. And when I notice that it starts to look different than the skin around it, that's how I know where to stop. So this whole area here is definitely close to this value. So I'm going to paint this area in. All right, so now I'm going to look at my next area, and I'm going to hold the color picker. See the little plus sign there? Right next to it, so I can kind of see. So there's a few darker spots and a little bit lighter down here. I think I'm going to do something kind of like this in between here. And then I'm going to do this area. See how far this goes. See, that's a little too dark over there, so I'm going to bring it down to here. And it looks like I went a little too far with that, so I'm just gonna come in a little bit more because I don't think it's quite that much. And let's see how close that is over here. Yeah, it's not too far off. So I'm gonna do this area over here. Now you can see a very clear line between these two. So a couple things we can do. When I zoom in, I could use my blending tool. So right here, my smudging, and I could just kind of fade one into the other by kind of going back and forth. I'm just kind of like taking a few pixels over onto one side, back onto the other, over to the one side, back over to the other. Another option I could do is I can create something that's in between these two values. So this is one and this is the other. So look at where they're at here. So here is where that circle is. There's where the other circle is. So something probably about here would be in between. And I could come through here and I can use my paintbrush and just come through here with another value. So if I pull back, I still see a line there. So it doesn't stand, it still like doesn't blend enough for me. So I'm gonna zoom back in. And just to make it even, I'm gonna do it on the other side too. So I'm gonna come over through here. And I think I need a shade lighter right next to it. So I'm gonna go here. And I don't want that. I'm gonna do just something right in between. Let's see what that looks like. And then one over here. And then this jump from here to here looks really noticeable still. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to look at where this one is and then where this one is and try to find one in the middle. And kind of fade that transition. Now let's pull back and look at it. Right? You can totally see how that works now. So you just have to kind of keep matching the values that are there. So I'm going to just work on the face. So I'm going to come over here, work in this section, just kind of see some of the values that are there. Find something kind of in the middle. Then come through and paint it. And I think it's like a little bit lighter right here. So I'm going to come over to this side, get a little bit of this value here. And then I'm going to come down here, choose that one. Right there. I'm going to choose this one in here. And then wherever it looks like too choppy from one color to the next, I'm going to come in between. So I'm going to look at these two. This one is here. This one is way down there. So I need something in between. So look at where those two dots are showing up. I'm going to choose something right there. And then bring in that color here, just to kind of help it transition. And then I'm going to look between this one and this one. I'm going to come down here and look in between these two. So I look at where the two dots are and then just find something kind of right in the middle between the two to help that transition. This is quite a jump here, but it may be okay because there's a pretty strong shadow there. Over here, I'm going to use this one again to go in between here. And then I'm going to use, that one is so close. Wow. You can't even tell the difference. All right, and so I think I might do a little bit of smudging too, just to kind of fade the colors into one another, kind of move the pixels over a little bit. Again, the goal is to kind of transition the colors so they're not too choppy. We want to get the skin tones relatively close to the color that's underneath it, but we want to still kind of blend those colors. If we were painting this in class, we would be doing the same thing. We would be finding those different values and we would be kind of blending them together whenever it transitions to the darker value. I'm going to do a little blending over here. So I'm just using that smudge tool and kind of smudging a little bit to one side, smudging a little bit to the other side. And wherever it looks really choppy, like it just does not flow nicely, is where I'm kind of trying to give it a little nudge in one direction or another. All right. Okay, let's see what that looks like when we pull back. So I'm hitting the zoom tool and I'm holding Alt to pull back. Let's turn off our picture and see. So I've got like a little area right here that needs to be colored in, so that's an easy fix. So I'll go here, match the color, go on my paintbrush tool, just cover up those couple areas. And let's turn it on with my contour. So you can see I'm pretty close to filling in this whole top area. So the biggest thing I'm going to focus on is the skin tone first. So I'm going to work throughout the whole face and try to match the skin tones that are there. Okay. After I do the skin tones for the face, then I'll start to work on the eyes and the lips, and then I'll do the hair last. So we'll kind of break this into chunks. So this week, let's focus on the face, just matching the skin tones in the ears, the face, the neck, any place where you see the actual skin, just trying to match the skin and blend the skin, okay? So then you'll save your progress and then we'll come back to it and I'll have another video that shows the eyes, another video that shows the mouth, another video that shows the hair, right? So you can see step by step how we work through this process, okay?